1. Don't chase what can't cherish you. Distance demands respect. Stop handing yourself over to people who haven't earned access. You don't have to be everywhere, for everyone, all the time. Pull back. Let your absence teach them the value of your presence. Some people won't appreciate you until you're not available. You can't elevate your value while entertaining disrespect. 2. You're not being rude. You're reclaiming your role. People confuse boundaries with arrogance, but you're not selfish for protecting your peace. You're not hard to reach. You're hard to misuse. When you raise your standards, you narrow your circle. That's not a loss. That's leverage. You're not here to be popular. You're here to be powerful. 3. Sometimes you gotta step back to step up. If they don't call, don't beg. If they don't check on you, don't chase. Your worth isn't measured by their attention, it's revealed by your alignment. Step back so they can step up. Make space for those who see you, not just need you. Growth comes when you learn to love from a distance without lowering your value. 4. Every time you say no, you say yes to your worth. You don't have to show up every time someone whistles. You're not a servant of approval, you're a steward of purpose. Saying no isn't rejection. It's recognition of your time, your energy, your worth. Let them wonder why you're not so available. That's how you raise your value, by valuing yourself first. 1. Don't chase what can't cherish you. Distance demands respect. There comes a moment in life where silence speaks louder than your voice, where absence roars louder than your presence, and where stepping away is more powerful than showing up. Too many people are caught in a cycle of overextending themselves, giving, showing up, checking in, proving their worth, hoping that somehow their constant presence will earn them permanent value. But here's the truth. Chasing what can't cherish you is how you lose yourself in people who never intended to keep you. When your energy is spent on those who treat it like a discount item, you'll always feel like you're coming up short. You were never created to beg for acknowledgement. You weren't made to audition for acceptance. When someone fails to cherish you, when they overlook you, dismiss you, or only remember your name when they need something, it's not a reflection of your value, it's a reflection of their vision. They just can't see who you are. But don't you dare let their lack of vision convince you to shrink yourself. You don't need to try harder to be seen by someone who refuses to open their eyes. The art of self-respect begins with subtraction. Distance doesn't always mean disconnection, it means discernment. If someone is misusing your presence, taking your kindness for granted, or treating your consistency like background noise, then the best thing you can do is step back. That distance will do what your words never could. Let them feel your absence. Let the silence teach them what your presence meant. Let the void speak the value your voice tried to communicate. There are people who only notice the light when the room goes dark. They only appreciate warmth when the fire's gone out. That's why sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disappear from the places where your value is being mismanaged. You're not punishing them, you're prioritizing you. You're not being spiteful, you're being strategic. Distance is not cruelty, it's clarity. It gives others the chance to reflect, and it gives you the space to reset. You are not hard to love. You're just tired of doing all the work. Love, real love, doesn't require proof through pain. It doesn't ask for sacrifice without support. But the reason so many keep chasing what can't cherish them is because they've confused attention with affection. Just because someone responds when you reach out doesn't mean they'd notice if you went silent. Just because they accept what you give doesn't mean they value what you offer. There's a difference between being needed and being valued. One uses you, the other honors you. And if you find yourself constantly initiating, always being the first to call, text, or show up, ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped? Would they notice, or would they just replace me with convenience? That question isn't meant to create bitterness, it's meant to reveal truth. Because when you stop chasing, you start choosing. And when you start choosing, you stop settling. Too many people are living their lives in emotional debt, investing in people who pay back in excuses. They give time, energy, loyalty, and love, but the return is disappointment. That's not a healthy exchange. That's emotional bankruptcy. And the first step to healing is closing the account. Withdraw your attention from what drains you. Redirect your energy toward what sustains you. Let your distance be the interest they pay for undervaluing your presence. Sometimes people need to be reminded that you are not a guarantee. You are not something to be expected. You are a gift tone that won't be reissued if lost. And if they can't see that, then you owe it to yourself to walk away. Because the more you chase, the more they run. And the more they run, the more your value drops in their eyes. But the second you stop chasing, the second you pull back, the second you go quiet, that's when the shift happens. That's when they start asking questions. Why haven't I heard from them? Why didn't they respond? Why did they stop showing up? Let them ask, let them wonder, let them feel what life is like without your steady presence. Let them sit in the silence you once filled with grace, support, and loyalty. Because you're not doing this to be cruel, you're doing this because you finally understand what self-worth feels like. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not attention-seeking, it's quiet, it's confident, it's calm. It's saying, I know what I bring, and if you can't honor it, I won't force it. That's the foundation of respect. You teach people how to treat you not with your words, but with your actions. And sometimes, the most powerful action is absence. Stop arguing for your worth in rooms where you're not being heard. Stop explaining your heart to people who only listen to reply, not to understand. Stop showing up uninvited to spaces that were never designed to celebrate you. When you pull back, you don't lose value, you reveal it. In fact, distance is often the mirror people need. When you're no longer available on demand, when you're no longer always there, always ready, always sacrificing, people are forced to confront who you were to them. They begin to realize that you were the one holding the connection together. You were the bridge. You were the one filling the emotional gaps. And without you, the relationship feels different. It feels hollow. That's not guilt. That's growth. That's them being introduced to the weight of your worth. And while they're feeling the emptiness of your exit, you're finally feeling the freedom of your boundaries. Because when you stop trying to be enough for everyone else, you start becoming everything you were meant to be for yourself. You start rediscovering peace. You start reclaiming joy. You stop second-guessing yourself. That space you gave them, it's the same space you now use to rebuild your confidence, your clarity, and your calling. But none of that happens if you keep chasing, if you keep lowering your standards to be accepted, if you keep shrinking your needs to avoid being alone, if you keep sacrificing your dignity for crumbs of validation. You can't chase what's running and expect it to stay. You can't force someone to cherish what they don't understand, and you can't raise your value while begging for basic respect. The truth is, not everyone is meant to walk with you at every stage of your journey. Some people are seasonal. Some were sent to teach you, not keep you. Others were sent to test you, to show you how far you'll bend before you break. And some were meant to reflect the very love you should have been giving yourself all along. Don't confuse history with destiny. Just because they've always been there doesn't mean they're supposed to stay. Let them miss you. Let them feel your absence. Let them learn that you were never ordinary. You were grace wrapped in loyalty. You were wisdom dressed in humility. You were love that kept showing up. But now you've learned. Now you understand. Now you've awakened to the truth that you don't have to chase to be chosen. That you don't have to prove to be worthy. That distance isn't rejection, it's redirection. And in that redirection, you find the power to rise. You stop texting first. You stop checking in just to keep the connection alive. You stop over-explaining. You stop showing up uninvited. You stop waiting for them to see your worth and start showing it to yourself. That's what it means to raise your value. It's not about arrogance, it's about awareness. It's about finally realizing that you are not everyone's answer, and not everyone deserves your access. The most dangerous thing you can do is convince yourself that someone's neglect is a challenge to overcome. That if you just try harder, love deeper, give more, then somehow they'll get it. But that mindset only leads to resentment, because the more you give to someone who can't receive, the more you lose parts of yourself in the process. And by the time they finally notice you, you've already become a stranger to your own soul. Don't let that happen. Don't abandon you while trying to be there for them. Don't water dead plants and call it loyalty. Learn to let go. Learn to retreat. Learn to detach with dignity. Learn to say, I love you, but I love me more. And when you do, watch what happens. Watch how people suddenly reach out. Watch how they suddenly want to connect. Watch how your silence becomes the loudest message you've ever sent. But don't come back too quickly. Don't return just because they noticed. Don't undo your progress for a moment of attention. Let them sit in the space they helped create. Let them wrestle with the silence. Let them chase if they really care. And even then, make sure they're not chasing the memory of you, but the version of you that has evolved. Because you've grown, you've changed, you've stopped chasing what can't cherish you. And now, your value isn't based on their opinion, it's based on your decision. The decision to protect your peace, to honor your time, to respect your heart, and to let distance do what desperation never could reveal who's really for you. Chasing leads to exhaustion. Distance leads to evaluation. It shows you who steps forward when you step back. It reveals who values your presence when it's no longer convenient. And most importantly, it teaches you that your worth was never up for negotiation. You don't become valuable when they notice you. You were valuable when they ignored you. You were valuable when they misused you. And you're still valuable now. So pull back. Take the space. Let them miss you. Not to play games, but to protect your gift. Not to punish, but to purify. Let your distance recalibrate the connection. Let it reintroduce you as someone who's no longer willing to settle for scraps of love. You're no longer in the business of proving your worth. You're in the business of preserving your purpose. And that begins when you finally stop chasing what was never meant to hold you. 2. You're not being rude. You're reclaiming your role. There is a deep difference between being rude and being real. There's a line between selfishness and self-respect, and it's time you stop apologizing for standing on the right side of that line. Too often, we're taught to be nice, to be agreeable, to keep the peace. We're told to avoid conflict, to smooth over tension, to make ourselves likable at all costs. But what happens when that constant need to be accepted causes you to lose access to your own needs? What happens when your desire to be understood leads to you being overlooked, undervalued, or used? It happens to people every single day. The ones who give the most, care the most, show up the most, often the ones who are treated like they're optional. The very people who offer the most light are the ones most taken for granted. Why? Because availability without boundaries becomes invisibility. When you show up for everyone without questioning, people start assuming you'll always be there. When you say yes too much, no becomes foreign, and your yes loses its weight. But the moment you start protecting your space, suddenly people say you've changed. When you stop replying instantly, they say you're distant. When you stop tolerating disrespect, they say you're aggressive. When you start saying no, they say you're rude. But you're not being rude, you're reclaiming your role. You're reestablishing your value. You're finally putting the crown back on your head that you kept handing out to others. You're no longer the emotional dumping ground for people who only remember you when they're in crisis. You're no longer the default option for those who never chose you as a priority. And the world may not be ready for that shift, but your soul is. Because being too available is how you became too exhausted. Constantly saying yes was how you silenced your needs. Always playing peacemaker is how you became a prisoner to other people's chaos. But now you've grown. Now you've woken up. Now you've realized that boundaries are not walls, they're windows. They let the right people in and keep the wrong people out. Some people will only respect your presence once they feel your absence. Some will only notice your importance once you stop being the one to always reach out, to always check in, to always hold it together. And when that happens, they'll try to guilt you into returning to who you were. They'll say, you're acting different. Yes, you are, because you finally respect yourself. They'll say, you've changed. Yes, because you outgrew who you had to be to survive their mistreatment. This isn't bitterness, this is clarity. You finally realize that being nice without limits leads to being used without pause. You're not cold, you're cautious. You're not cruel, you're careful. You're not arrogant, you're aware. You're aware that the version of you who tolerated everything wasn't healed, that version was hoping to be loved through sacrifice. But now you know love without respect is exploitation wearing a smile. And access without accountability is abuse disguised as friendship. So you're reclaiming your role, not the role they handed you, the one you were born to walk in, the role of someone who knows their value, the role of someone who's no longer available for disrespect, the role of someone who doesn't answer every call, who doesn't chase every friendship, who doesn't entertain drama just to maintain fake peace. You've redefined what it means to show up. You now show up for yourself with the same consistency you once gave to others. This isn't you becoming selfish. This is you becoming strategic. You've learned the cost of trying to be everything for everyone. You've seen how draining it is to pour from an empty cup. You've felt the burnout of being the dependable one without ever being checked on yourself. But no more. No more giving to be seen. No more bending to be loved. No more sacrificing yourself on the altar of approval. Now, your kindness comes with conditions. Your generosity comes with discernment. Your compassion comes with calibration. You've learned that not everyone is worthy of your energy, your time, or your empathy. Some people just want your presence, not your progress. They're fine with who you were, but your growth threatens their comfort. They liked you better when you were quiet, compliant, available on demand. But now you're setting appointments, not accepting assumptions. Let them call it rude. Let them mislabel your boundaries. That's not your burden to carry. You were never obligated to keep playing a role that kept you small just to make them comfortable. You're not the villain for putting yourself first. You're the hero for finally rescuing yourself. And reclaiming your role doesn't mean you stop loving people. It means you start loving you too. It means you stop ignoring your own voice to make others feel secure. It means you stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. Because if people can only love you when you're silent, they were never in love with the real you, they were in love with your silence. And if someone leaves because you stopped overextending, they never valued your presence, they depended on your sacrifice. You were never meant to be the background character in your own life. You were never created to serve everyone else while starving your own purpose. Reclaiming your role is about stepping into your true position, the position where your needs matter, your voice matters, your peace matters, where you don't have to play small to fit inside someone else's limited perception of you, where you don't have to shrink your joy, dilute your brilliance, or hide your strength just to avoid making others uncomfortable. People will try to pull you back into the old version of you, not because it's better, but because it's predictable. The healed you requires them to level up, and not everyone wants to do that. But don't lower yourself just to stay connected. Some bridges are meant to burn not because of hate, but because of healing. Let the flame of self-respect consume every place where you were overlooked. Let the fire of new awareness light the path toward freedom. And know this, saying no is not rejection, it's redirection. Saying I need space is not abandonment, it's alignment. Saying this doesn't work for me is not rebellion, it's responsibility. You're finally taking responsibility for your energy, your boundaries, your well-being. That's not disrespect, that's growth. That's emotional maturity. That's what happens when you stop living to be liked and start living to be whole. You're not here to be everyone's answer. You're not here to save people from their own choices. You're not here to constantly fix what others keep breaking. You're here to fulfill your purpose, and you can't do that if you're constantly managing everyone else's emotions at the expense of your own. Reclaiming your role means releasing what you were never meant to carry. It means stepping into what you were always meant to become. And that's not easy. There will be guilt. There will be second guessing. There will be people trying to manipulate you back into their comfort zone. But don't fold. Don't apologize for growing. Don't apologize for needing more. Don't apologize for expecting what you deserve. Keep choosing you, even when it's lonely, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's mocked. Because the right people will never punish you for protecting your peace. You don't have to explain your boundaries. You don't have to justify your silence. You don't have to defend your decisions. You're not rude. You're not distant. You're not dramatic. You are finally aware of how valuable you are, and you're making decisions from that truth. That's what reclaiming your role looks like. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It's firm, focused, and free. You're learning how to say yes to your joy without guilt, how to say no without a 10-paragraph explanation, how to rest without feeling lazy, how to disconnect without feeling disloyal, how to love without losing yourself. That's the kind of life you're stepping into, now a life where you don't have to sacrifice your sanity for superficial connections. A life where you're no longer on emotional call 24/7. A life where your time, your mind, and your heart are protected. You're reclaiming your mornings, reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your self-trust. You're walking differently, speaking differently, loving differently, and not everyone will understand. But that's okay. You're not doing it for their understanding, you're doing it for your transformation. Let them misunderstand, let them question, let them gossip. You're not here to win popularity, you're here to walk in purpose. And purpose requires protection. It requires saying no to distractions. It requires silence in response to nonsense. It requires walking away from what once entertained you but no longer serves you. And yes, that means some people won't get the new version of you, but that's not your job. Your job is not to be digestible for everyone, it's to be authentic to yourself. That's what it means to reclaim your role. You're no longer playing the part others assigned you. You're writing your own script, living your own truth, walking your own path. And you're doing it boldly, with boundaries, with grace, with wisdom, with power. You're no longer dimming your light to make others feel secure in their shadows. You're shining fully, fiercely, unapologetically, because you've learned that you're not too much, you're not too loud, you're not too intense, you're not too complicated. You're just too real for people who are committed to pretending. So don't shrink, don't silence yourself, don't second-guess your instincts. You're not being rude, you're reclaiming your role and everything you lost while trying to keep the peace. You're taking it all back now, and you're not sorry for it. 3. They took you for granted because you never took a break. You kept showing up, you kept giving, you kept loving, you kept helping, you kept forgiving, and you kept doing it without pause, without condition, without complaint. That's the kind of heart you have, the kind of spirit that doesn't quit on people even when they quit on themselves, the kind of loyalty that doesn't come with fine print. But let's be honest, it cost you not just your energy, not just your time. It cost you clarity, it cost you peace, it cost you the realization of your own worth. And now, after all that giving, you're sitting there wondering why you feel so empty. But here's the truth that hurts before it heals. They took you for granted because you never took a break. They thought your love was limitless because you never paused to replenish it. They assumed your kindness was free because you never asked for reciprocity. They misread your silence as satisfaction. They mistook your endurance as a license to ignore your needs. And before you knew it, the very people you sacrificed for started treating you like a second option. That's not on them. That's not on life. That's on the fact that you trained people to believe your time was endless. You conditioned them to believe your presence was permanent. You didn't do it on purpose. You did it out of love, out of loyalty, out of responsibility. But here's the secret they never told you. What you tolerate teaches others how to treat you. And every time you answered the phone in the middle of your own crisis to help them through theirs, you sent a message. Every time you ignored your own exhaustion to be strong for someone else, you sent a message. Every time you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't, just to keep the peace, you sent a message. And now those messages have returned as expectations, unspoken contracts written in your silence. You never stopped to rest because you thought rest was weakness. You never said no because you thought boundaries were betrayal. You never took a break because you thought it was selfish. But look where it left you: overextended, overlooked, and overwhelmed. And the worst part? They still expect more. They still want access. They still want the version of you that never gets tired, never says no, never walks away. But that version of you no longer exists. It was built on burnout. It was fueled by fear. It was kept alive by the lie that love means losing yourself. Not anymore. You've woken up. You finally realized that real love, real relationships, real connection isn't about running yourself dry for others. It's not about saying yes just to avoid guilt. It's not about being everything to everyone and nothing to yourself. You're allowed to pause. You're allowed to disconnect. You're allowed to not be available. You're allowed to say, "I need time for me." Taking a break doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a wise one. It means you finally understand that your energy is not infinite, that your soul needs silence, that your body needs peace, that your heart needs space. And anyone who punishes you for needing that never truly cared for you. They only cared for what you could give. You're not here to be their lifeline at the cost of your own life. You're not here to be strong for people who get weak when it's their turn to support you. You're not here to keep performing loyalty for people who confuse access with appreciation. You're here to grow, to heal, to become. And none of that happens when you're constantly pouring and never pausing. Let them say you're acting different. Let them say you're distant. Let them gossip, speculate, question. You're not being cold, you're being careful. You're not bitter, you're better. You've learned that being available 24/7 is how people forget you're human. It's how they start expecting presence without participation, love without limits, help without hesitation. And when you finally stop, they feel abandoned not because you left, but because they never thought you would. But that's the point. That's the lesson. You should have never let them think you were always on call. You should have never taught them that your life comes second. You should have never allowed your love to be mistaken for a guarantee. But it's not too late. You can reteach them. You can reclaim your time. You can reset the tone. And it begins with one decision. Take the break you should have taken long ago. Rest isn't a reward, it's a requirement. You can't keep showing up with an empty tank. You can't keep giving from a place of depletion. You can't keep saying yes when your heart is screaming no. You can't keep being everything for everyone just so you're not seen as a disappointment. The people who truly love you will understand. The people who really value you will respect the pause. And the people who don't, let them miss you. Let them sit with the silence. Let them feel the gap your presence once filled. Let them face the echo of their own assumptions. Because maybe, just maybe, your absence will speak louder than your presence ever did. Maybe your silence will scream the truth your mouth was too tired to say. Maybe your rest will remind them that you were never theirs to drain. You were a gift and they stopped treating you like one. Now it's your turn. Your turn to value yourself the way they should have. Your turn to give yourself the care you gave away. Your turn to protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. You don't have to be accessible to be valuable. You don't have to always be on to be important. You don't have to answer every message, attend every crisis, fix every issue. You are allowed to disappear to rebuild. You are allowed to pause to preserve. You are allowed to step back to regain perspective. They won't like it. They'll call you names, say you're fake, say you've changed, say you think you're better. And you know what? They're right. You have changed. You are better. Better because you no longer confuse loyalty with slavery. Better because you finally believe your worth doesn't require constant work. Better because you stopped breaking yourself to keep others whole. This new version of you isn't cruel, it's clear. Clear about what matters. Clear about who matters. clear about how you want to live, love, and lead. And part of that clarity is this: people who can't handle your boundaries never deserved your blessings. People who only loved you when you were convenient were never committed. People who vanished when you stopped sacrificing were never real. And now you see it. Now you know. Now you're walking differently, talking differently, choosing differently, because once you learn what your silence reveals, you'll never over-explain again. Once you experience the power of stepping back, you'll never chase again. Once you taste the peace that comes from solitude, you'll never settle for noise again. So take the break, take the nap, take the trip, take the breath, let the phone ring, let the messages wait, let the world spin without you for a minute. You're not missing anything that's meant for you. And if your presence was only appreciated when it was constant, it was never truly appreciated at all. You were never supposed to be on 24-hour call. You were never supposed to be the fixer of every storm. You were never meant to carry weight that wasn't yours. You were meant to rest, to breathe, to reset, because only then can you return stronger, wiser, sharper, healed, whole. Only then can you show up, not out of obligation, but out of overflow. They took you for granted because you never took a break, but that was the old you. The new you has boundaries, has clarity, has standards, has silence, and most of all, has peace. Keep it, guard it, and never apologize for it.